School committee meeting for March 5th, 2014. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So,
I just said that.
Yeah.
welcome back, people that are coming back. We're going to be finishing up our interviews tonight within our finalists, the final two in our interview process. So we're going to have some. Can you go?
Can I just say thank you for coming and hearing the interviews out? We really appreciate it.
Good stamina, too. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
And your name will be entered for a new car.
Hi, how are you? Catherine.
Dave Thomson.
Be careful.
That's your first test.
Yeah. See how agile you are.
Nice to meet you.
Steve Tringali. All right.
Nice to meet you.
How are you? Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Be careful, it gets tricky over there.
Is it
This is
further
the
away
hot
than
seat, I
usual?
see.
Yeah, well, it's the warm seat.
All right.
So this is Dr. David Thomson, principal of Raynham Middle School for the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District. So welcome. We want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I truly am honored by the opportunity.
Right. And thank you for allowing us the opportunity to learn about you and your professional experience and your educational priorities and how it's going to be a match for our open position for superintendent here at BMR. So we're going to ask a series of questions, no particular order, and we'll go from there. So you want to start with a brief opening statement, if you like?
Sure. My name is Dave Thomson. I'm currently working the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District, which is regional school district, much like Blackstone Millville. I'm the principal of Raynham Middle School currently, which is 750 students. Interesting fact that I'll get out there right now. Last year, our accountability, if you look, we had a 29% improvement overall in our accountability ratings, 58% in our high needs group, 56% in our low income group, and 50% in our learning disabled students. That comes from a collaborative approach, comes from response to intervention and focusing on student achievement, and it's something that we're very proud of as a group. I'm not just a middle school principal. I also have several roles at the district level. I'm the district math coordinator, harassment officer, have worked on the strategic planning committee. In fact, I've worked on 3 strategic planning committees, and in each district that I've done that, I've chaired a segment of that. I'm also the Region 1 representative for the National Principals Association, past president of the State Principals Association, and have a plethora of leadership experience that I hope to share with you.
Good. Wonderful. So I got the first question. So what do you think the most important first steps a superintendent should take when he comes into a district?
I'm a firm believer in an entry plan and getting to know the community. I mean, my first priority would be to come in. The advantage of this situation with an interim Dr. Perry being here is that I would be able to start early, but meet the key stakeholders, parents, students, finance committees, selectmen, get to know the community, get to know what the needs, the desires of the community are, and from that, build a plan that's going to help move the district and, facilitate my becoming, part of the community.
Great. Steve?
One of the things we're trying to work on is improve the use of data in our school system. I see you mentioned just in your opening statement about MCAS.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some details about that, or another time when you've improved performance using data, and basically, how did you improve your MCAS so much in
Well,
one year?
we started several years ago. When I first got there, I took the practices that I had before. But we basically sit down as an entire faculty and look at the MCAS data, not just an overall how the school did, but how each student and category of student did, and from that plan, make an improvement plan. And that's a good start. The MCAS is a great measure of how you did teaching your curriculum last year. The problem is that we need to be doing that on an ongoing basis. We use common assessments and quarterly common assessments, and we sit down as grade level teams and we look at that data. We plan not only for curriculum shortfalls, things that kids did not necessarily master, but also individual plans for individual students. So, you know, it's ongoing data. We look overall at our MCAS data, which is a good measure, but we also look at ongoing data as well. Looking ahead, the PARCC assessment will be great for that with the 4 online tests, and we're going to have that information going forward. It'll kind of automate it for us, make it a little easier for our teachers. But using that information and really getting prescriptive and having time in your day when you can remediate and make sure kids are mastering the skills they need to do.
And how would you use data to drive professional development for the staff? And then maybe also, how would you use it to evaluate personnel, you know, principals, teachers, everything?
Right. Well, I guess the as far as professional development, it shows where weaknesses. Teachers, when they sit down, they look at where the weaknesses. They start to develop what kind of professional development they need. Kind of a little. I believe that professional development needs to be ongoing. It isn't a 3-hour jump in the pool, come out, everybody's clean and ready to go. You might have that quick jump in, but then you need to build and revisit and use professional time throughout the year to really help teachers do that. I'm a firm believer in what I call the train-the-trainer model, which is where you get kind of local experts in your buildings, in your district, and they perpetuate the learning as you move forward. A good example of that, we sent 3 teachers in my building off to a technology workshop. They became trainers, and now during our faculty meetings 4 times a year, they do technology training. So it's an ongoing piece, and they will work with people as needed throughout the day. Can you repeat the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
How would you use the data to evaluate personnel?
It's kind of well, obviously it's part of the new evaluation system and the overall ratings and how they're going. But I think the key thing is that looking at the evaluation system, teachers are going to be using that student data, the MCAS data, to set goals for themselves. Okay? And then by looking at how they're doing on those goals is going to improve student achievement and improve their practice. It is part of the evaluation system as it's written down now in the state standards, but you know, you also need to set it up so that you're working with them to improve what the student results are, and it shouldn't necessarily be a gotcha. It should be a conversation and a coaching.
Mm-hmm. Would you design professional development around the DDMs, things like that, or would it be more of assessments? You know, basically proactive or reactive?
I like to be proactive. Mm-hmm. You know, the DDMs should show the growth that you're trying to measure ongoing as you go through. So you might have something at the beginning of a unit, mm-hmm. or beginning of something in October, but you need to have common assessments between now and then to see if you're on track. So hopefully the DDMs are going to be confirming what you've seen in the other common assessments.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wendy.
Mine's on curriculum. Mine has a few parts. So the first part is, how will you ensure that our district's curriculum and teachers' instructional methods are aligned pre-K to 12 and implemented in a way that enables our students to meet content standards?
Well, the first thing is that they have to align to the Common Core, mm-hmm. and there has to be a progression going through. My experience with designing curriculum is the best way to do is to sit people together, have them map it out, design it out, look at it not just horizontally, but also vertically as well, to make sure that all those pieces are getting covered, they're introduced, you bring them to mastery at the right level and time. And the Common Core does a pretty good job of sketching that out. The curriculum documents should be an ongoing, living, breathing document. I'd like to see the curriculum stored in some sort of central intranet accessible place where teachers can go to it and to look at the scope and sequence, get down to a point where we've got actual lesson plans developed as a district, and then make sure that they're, through the administrators and the evaluation process, make sure that they're being implemented appropriately. As far as teaching methods go, the rubric that is out there with the teacher's evaluation is a pretty comprehensive pretty comprehensive of what is effective teaching. It gives a good conversation piece for what those practices are that need to be done and to what level. The other piece of that is in order to get people to really use them and practice them, we also need to give opportunities for our professionals to learn how to do them better and reflect on their practice as well.
Okay. Based on that, how will you introduce change where change is needed?
Introduce change where change is needed in the curriculum, you're speaking. Well, the first thing is to look at the standards. Is our curriculum aligned with the standards? So that's the first thing, that realization of are we meeting what the state is asking us, and the federal government, in the case of the Common Core, is asking us to meet. So sitting down, finding out where those holes are, and then having the conversation of, okay, we're not doing well with this standard. We know that through our common assessments. We know that through our MCAS results. We know that through our curriculum maps. It's not covered appropriately. What do we need to do? What do we need to bring in, design, develop to fill in those gaps and those holes? It is a conversation. I believe strongly in the strength of professionals collaborating. You have great people who are dedicated, who want to do what's best for children, and sometimes it's just taking the time to really reflect and see where those holes and where those improvements need to be made.
And can you describe a time when when a curriculum goal or initiative was introduced and achieved within your leadership? Yes. One thing that we've worked on incessantly is open response questions. I think that's everybody's key piece. As a faculty, we sat down. We developed a method for doing that. Developed a template to use across all grade levels in every single subject area. And from that, we've made a tremendous improvement in our open responses. And that's just one aspect, but that's one that covers multiple curriculum areas. Another example, we developed a new math program, and there is no perfect silver bullet math program, but came up with, looked at math programs, came up with a good base math program, and then looked at it in that first year and said, okay, we need a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that, and a combination of finding materials and developing materials as a professional learning community. I think we've got a really, really strong math program right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian. Hi, good evening. Could you explain your problem-solving approach and provide an example where it worked well and an example where it didn't quite meet your expectations?
Well, we don't have problems. We have opportunities for growth. Okay. The first thing is you need to look at a problem. And you need to try to look at it from all angles. I think key to that is having a good team around you with a lot of perspective. As a new guy coming in, that historical, institutional knowledge type perspective is going to be really important as to what has been done in the past, how has it worked. So looking at the problem at all angles, having conversations around what it is, what the best way it would be to approach solving that problem, and then implementing a plan, measuring it as you go along to see if it's working. If it's not working, you might need to take a step back, deep breath, reassess, and move forward. An example where it's worked well. I can think back to Mansfield. We were looking for ways to improve the schedule. It was not working very well. We sat down as it was brought up by one of my assistant principals, and they did most of the scheduling. This wasn't going to work, and this wasn't going to this. And we sat down. They brought up the problems. We put them all up on a whiteboard. Put them all up there, and then from there, problem solved. Brought in key teachers to vet some of the solutions that we had. And then from there, we actually got a schedule that worked well. We were able to get some of the other programs and things that we needed to put into the schedule. So that's one that worked well. One that did not work well. They all work well. One that did not work well. In Duxbury, it was another schedule piece, and there was a committee that I was in charge of to do that. And we had come up with an idea. We hadn't vetted it like I did in Mansfield. And again, you can kind of see the progression. Tried it out, put it into place, and it didn't work very well. And we had to go back to the drawing board and revamp that. But that's a while ago. I think that's the best one I can.
So Duxbury was a problem, Mansfield was an opportunity.
Right. Duxbury was a problem, Mansfield was not.
All right, let me just ask you a follow-up. When and how do you determine if a problem or an opportunity needs to be escalated or delegated?
Escalated or delegated? If it's, well, obviously, student safety, personnel issues, those sorts of things that are hot button issues, would need to be escalated, or something that I would need to deal with. Other things, curriculum, maybe a minor budget. If it's a major budget issue, I would need to be definitely involved in. I guess, I'd like to get to a point where I build a team where if I delegate, the person feels comfortable enough to say, hey, this is over my head, and bring it back, and know that we're going to work on it together. But those big ticket items that are going to end up on the 6 o'clock news are the ones that have got to stop at the superintendent's desk. The ones that are long-term, or we've got time to work on, or a work in progress, not that I wouldn't be involved per se, I'd want reports and updates, but those are the ones that you want to delegate. And, delegating is important because you want to develop the leadership around you. I want a team that functions, a team that is honest, frank conversations, difficult conversations at times, but knowing that we're going to walk out of there together with a good understanding and making good decisions. And if you don't delegate to other people and let them have those opportunities, you're not going to build that in your team.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Aaron?
How are you?
Good to see you. If you could share with us how, as superintendent, you would gain the support of our two communities, which you're familiar with regional, and how you would get our two communities to come together and do what is needed for our district. Most specifically, if you needed to gain support for additional contributions at budget time, being that our line items, our budget is already the largest line item for each town.
Yep.
Just some ideas of techniques you may think you would use to gain their support.
All right. Well, the first thing is you have to develop relationships, and you have to develop trust. People need to believe that the superintendent is cognizant of the financial aspects of the job and the financial requirements that are being made in the town, but also realize that the superintendent is trying to do what is best for their children. But you got to build relationships, build trust in both communities, in various aspects of the community, not just with the parents, but with the other townsfolk as well. Bless you. And that trust and that knowledge that you're trying to do the best for their children will then give you coins in the bank, if you will, that you can cash in at certain times. You can't be someone that's calling wolf all the time. You need to give a clear, concise vision of what the future is of the district, what the upcoming expectations are going to be of education and of the district. Case in point, park testing and the technology requirements for that. We should be talking about that. We should have been talking about that for the last couple of years and building the infrastructure so that we're able to handle that. And what are those? Communicating what those expectations are, why they're important, why they're needed, how they're going to benefit, the next generation of this community, and improve the overall situation. And you can't go screaming for every single thing. You need to be cognizant that, Millville might need a fire truck this year. But how do we plan that 5 years out? So being proactive, being forward-thinking, communicating that, making sure that message gets across, spending time with people in these communities, spending time in the community, and building that trust and that relationship.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just on another note, since we're a district that participates in school choice, we do have And we do have a highly respected vocational school very close by. We seem to have a large decrease in enrollment each year from the 8th grade to the high school. Tell me some ideas you would use to try to retain students within our district for all grade levels, but more specifically in the middle school to the high school, Jeff.
Right. Well, I think the first thing to get going, and you might already do it now, but is to really have an early open house to show off what happens at Blackstone Millville. Show the great things, the opportunities that come out of that. There's a certain segment of the population that are looking towards the traditional trades, and you might not swing those kids, but those kids that are on the fence, staying at Blackstone Millville. The other thing is to look at, why are these kids choosing? What are they choosing over there? What is the reason for going there? And are we able to offer those things at Blackstone Millville? I think in our first interview I mentioned, the nursing program. You could easily offer nursing at Blackstone Millville, or some sort of certification program that might lead a child, because most of them are going to go off and get their RN in college anyways, but you have that precursor as part of your regular program at Blackstone Millville. So looking at programs like that, being out front about what Blackstone Millville offers, what makes it different, and really chiming in on that community pride. This is our high school, this is our community, and we have lots of opportunities here. Those are the things. I mean, we're looking at it at BR too, and the nursing, computer technology and graphics is another one. You could easily offer at the high school. But some of those programs where okay, it's offered in both places. Give them a real choice on where they're going to be, but also show them the other great things that Blackstone Millville does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Diane?
Can you tell us about a recent professional development and how it's changed your thinking and practice?
Well, I just got off of 3 years of working on a doctorate, so I won't mention that one. Recent professional development. Well, right now I'm involved in the sheltered English immersion class, which has really caused me to really rethink about how we're designing our programs and our expectations for these students, giving me a wider view. I just got back from the National Principals Conference, and there was a speaker there that I really enjoyed that talked about bringing out your inner brilliance, and as corny as that sounds, bought his book, and I'm really starting to get into that. But changing, how I'm trying to think of which one I want to pursue. But the shelter, I'll go with the sheltered in English immersion. But looking at it really has changed, or it started to change. The next course is the second class is tomorrow night. But thinking about the challenges that those students face coming in and trying to catch up and learn English while everything else is moving forward. It really is kind of hitting a moving target. And that understanding of that struggle, I think, will make me, a better administrator.
Michael?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm kind of the numbers guy, the budget guy.
Okay.
Everyone's favorite topic.
Yes.
So from a region, you probably know intimately the impact of local assessments as well as Chapter 78 and so forth. So maybe you could just explain to the committee some of your experience in building the Raynham Middle School budget, and if you've had any experience in the general overall K-12 implementation. With
Right. I have not had a lot of formal experience in the general K-12. I'll just point out that in Mansfield, it was a 1,200 student middle school, 110 teachers, and I designed a budget for that school 3 years over. And actually, the first time I did it, my first principalship, I was told by the superintendent it was the best middle school budget he had ever seen. When you're dealing with a regional agreement and all that, you have to go towards each towns and talk about, what the needs are overall, what their assessments are, what they are willing to, you're dealing with two entities. As far as overall budget, there are pieces of the Rainham Middle budget that I've had to present to the Budget Subcommittee based on staffing and reasons for that, and so I've had that sort of experience budget-wide, district-wide. I am very familiar with the process. We're involved with the process, soup to nuts. We have to design our building budgets. Depending on the year, depends on whether you're given, okay, put down whatever you need, keep it to 5%, try to find a 3% cut this year because we want to bring in, full-day kindergarten or whatever else it might be. Usually, as you go through 3 or 4 different versions of that budget, you sit down with the superintendent and the business manager and go through. And at times, with the Budget Subcommittee, especially when it comes down to staffing, because that obviously is one of the larger pieces of any school budget.
As a follow-up, can you share with us any creative approaches you've had to take to address the needs versus the realities? How did you keep all the sources spinning in the air?
Well, there's a couple things. Sometimes you have to make trades. I've had to trade certain teaching positions for other teaching positions that became more of a priority, reorganize the schedule to make that happen. I'm constantly looking for cost savers. A couple years ago, right after our big budget cuts in 2007, we have a fairly new building with all the lights are programmable, and it's like, well, why don't we turn off half of these lights on a sunny day? And in doing that, I managed to save throughout the year about $100,000 in our energy budget. The business manager came up to me at one point in January and said, "What the hell are you doing? This is crazy. How come you're not?" And I said, "Well, just on sunny days we turn off all the lights." And to go back to the decision-making process, I came up with this with the head custodian. How can we find some cost savings? And we came up with that, and we said, "Well, okay, let's try it." Tried it in one hallway, got teacher feedback where they thought, because student safety is most important, does it work, does it not work? Well, it works here, but it doesn't work there, and, trial and error going through working with the teaching staff to make sure it was safe, but we ended up saving about $100,000 in our energy budget. There's all sorts of other creative, there's, programs for solar panels out there, collaborative bidding, recycling is another one that we brought to the district where, we're recycling paper, and that isn't a big cost savings. You don't get a lot of money back from recycling paper, but it's saving what you throw out on the other side that actually is the cost savings. So looking at every little itty-bitty bit counts. So being penny wise, I tend to be fairly frugal and conservative with my spending and my budgeting.
Kind of a following along that, but I'm going to shift gears from budget to more of a vision thing. So it's kind of 2 parts. Share with the committee what you see the future of public education in the second half of this decade. Where are we going? And how are we going to get there? And what do you think are some of the key things that you think will face this district as well as other districts in Massachusetts as far as the challenges?
I think you're going to see more of a blended learning approach going forward. You're going to see teachers become more facilitators. There'll still be some presentations and that sort of thing. Technology will become a larger and larger piece in the learning environment. Your college students now that are leaving are going to go to universities that are going to, even though they're taking a class on campus, they're still going to have a Blackboard experience, so they're going to be doing online pieces, and that's going to trickle down to high schools and middle schools. Again, technology infrastructure is going to be extremely important to that. The technology savviness of the teachers is going to be very important in developing that as time goes on. Students are going to be using multiple ways to express what they learn. So that's what I see. I see a lot more choice in curriculum and course offerings because of that piece moving forward. Hopefully because of motivation and interest, you'll see a higher level of learning and doing because of that, but that's what I think is going to be the next.
And the second part of that is, say as the successful candidate and, you're here for some time and, your time comes to retire or to move on to another opportunity, what would your legacy be, or as I've said to other candidates, what's your epitaph when you leave in Blackstone Millville?
My epitaph, my legacy. I'm not, I guess, to the whole legacy issue, I'm not someone that is going to worry about a legacy. I'm going to worry about doing what's best for the students and for the district. And if that's my legacy, then that's great. My epitaph, hopefully, will be, this is someone that, and I guess it comes back to a leadership philosophy, and I'll go back to the open-ended response question. When we, and how we approach that, at the end of, I think it was the third year when I was chosen as Massachusetts State Principal of the Year, I had gone through and at the last faculty meeting had a little celebration and listed all the things that were accomplished that year. And at the end of that, about 3 or 4 of my teachers were standing there, they're looking at the list, they're pointing at it and saying, wow, look at what we accomplished. And that's important, because it's not what Dave made us do or Dave pushed us through, it's look at what we accomplished. So I guess I would like my epitaph to be, leadership with passion, leadership with conviction, leadership that that evolved in an organization to a point where it basically moves on its own. I'm not quite sure how I'd write that as an epitaph per se, but that is a rainwater moment, if you will. Look at what we accomplished. And it's kind of funny because early in my administrative career I had some criticism that I didn't use the I word enough when I was doing my evaluations and stuff. I look at education, it's a higher calling. Okay, I'm here to serve kids and to serve a district and to move the district forward, not for I or for me. I mean, things have come my way. I've had a lot of great opportunities, but I get more pride out of what we accomplish and where we have gone. And I'm very proud of the growth that we showed last year in our accountability. But that's a we thing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kathy?
Yes, reflecting back professionally, your biggest disappointment and what you've learned from that?
My biggest disappointment, I guess, well, it's kind of personal, but someone that I thought that I could trust who came into a leadership position was not someone who I could trust. There's a big loyalty piece, and that probably is my biggest disappointment. There's I can think of one 7th grader right now who's going through an incredibly horrible time. There's not much I can do about it, except be there and be supportive. Those disappointments. But I guess looking back, I don't dwell on them. It's always moving forward and the next thing. So I don't know if I have a really good answer to that.
That's fine, that's good. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll try to dwell on my next disappointment. Yeah. That's the best I can do that with that one.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up questions? Steve?
We have not too much in terms of central office staff right now. We have to do a lot of rebuilding. If you're the superintendent, what sort of tasks and skills would you bring, and then what would you be looking for in the assistant superintendent? How would the two of you work together as a team, and how would your whole central office staff work? What do you see as the future and the structure of all that?
Well, there's a couple things. I want to build a diverse team. I don't want a whole bunch of yes people around me. I want people that don't think that I have a stupid idea. They're going to tell me I have a stupid idea and why they think I have a stupid idea. I might not agree with them, but so I want to build a very diverse team. I want everyone on my team to realize that they have a voice, and I want to hear that voice. As far as the assistant superintendent goes, it would be someone that would not be someone obviously I could work with. I don't, no one wants to work with somebody that they can't work with, but I'd like to find someone that would be different than I, maybe have different experiences or come from a different perspective, because that brings perspective to the team and to decisions. I demand a high level of commitment, a high level of trust, a high level of honesty, and that goes from the secretary to the business manager. I don't want to find out something's. I want them to feel they can come to me with something a problem's coming up. There's a budget driver that is going a little awry, and we need to be on top of it. But those honest conversations, time to have those conversations and meet. Once a week, twice a week. Sometimes we have a small central office. It's hard to get everybody together, but making that time a priority. And that's a priority to have the conversations and to build the relationships where you can have that kind of trust and conversation.
I just have one back to curriculum. Let me just make sure I phrase it correctly. How would you bridge the gap between the special education teaching community and the regular education teaching community so that they meet the same goal with all the students?
Well, I mean, the problem is that you're special, and I'm a father of a special ed student. They don't necessarily grow a year and a year, but you need to keep them. And there's obviously some exceptions. You have those that are, in separate programs that might run a little slower. But those kids that are, in inclusion classrooms need to be, and kids that are moving out between, need to be doing the same kind of curriculum, the same books, the same concepts that we're doing. If we're doing it in 7th grade, we should be doing it in 7th grade. And that's a process. You might not get as much or as deep, but you need to try to keep them, within a schema.
How do you bring the teachers, those two skill sets together to meet that goal of those students?
Well, the best way is to have them co-teach, which is where you have a special educator and you have a regular educator in the classroom, and those two people team teach together. So you have the content knowledge person and the pedagogy or the teaching method knowledge person working together, and both benefit from that. Students are working with both sets of teachers simultaneously. They both benefit from that, and that brings the level of expectation up for all. And that really is the best way to do it. But planning and having those conversations outside, and then orchestrating it in the classroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Mike?
Going to kind of jump around here a little bit. This question's about in the professional development space. You talked about you're measuring progress in between like MCAS results and so forth. So what tools does the district use to do that?
We currently use Galileo. There's a whole bunch of other tools out there. You don't necessarily, the advantage of, and what Galileo is it's a computer-based, web-based program. You can design tests that are based on standards, and then it'll instantaneously tell you how kids are doing and norm that, and they actually give you kind of intervention strategies to work with them. But you don't necessarily need that to look at how kids are doing. You need to have a set of common expectations, a set of common questions, and time for teachers to sit down after they corrected their tests, or maybe even they swap tests and correct them, and look at the results and see where students have done well, where they have not done well. Are there differences between Mrs. Jones's students and Mr. Haggerty's students, and how they did, and if so, why? What did you use to teach this? Your kids did a little bit better than mine. Oh, I should use that next time. Or we both need to revisit this concept.
So in that time that they have together, is that like professional learning communities, or are they using that as a built-in PD time? How do you structure your PD time? And
well, there's many different ways to do it. What I've done at Raina Middle is that we have common planning time. We have 2 common planning blocks in 5 days.
Okay.
One they use as team, and the other they use as curriculum. And then on top of that, after school once a month, they have a curriculum meeting, whole school.
Okay.
And look at those things and design things together. All right, and then me as the leader, I go in and I sit with them and go over their quarterlies and help, in the beginning, I facilitated a lot of conversations to get them going. Now I just sit and let them tell me.
Another follow-up on, you mentioned park and the need for infrastructure. What steps has Bridgewater Rainham taken to address that concern?
We currently have internet in all of our buildings. We have bought several Chromebook labs. We have put in, added computer labs in each building as well. I think we've added at least 2 computer labs to each building. We're not there yet, but we've made a few good strides.
Any one-to-one initiatives? Or?
Right now, I'm currently piloting a Bring Your Own Device initiative in my building, which hopefully is going to go district-wide next year or the year after.
And my final question is, you're 5 to 8 down there. Has that always been the case, or was it ever 6 to 8? Or
No, it's that one's always been 5 to 8. Mansfield was 6 to 8. Duxbury was 5 to 8. Actually, it was actually kind of funny. It was 7, 8, and 5, 6, and that became 6 to 8 because the 5th grade moved over to the elementary school.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other follow-ups? No. Any closing statement from you you'd like to share with us that we haven't hit upon that you want to?
I think you hit it pretty well. I guess I'd like to stress my leadership style. I mean, based on your self-assessment and the desire to bring the community together, I feel strongly that my leadership style would do that, not just in the district itself, but in the community as well. I don't want to jinx myself, but I do plan on being intimately involved with the community. This is not a short-term thing. If you look at my record, I mean, for the most part, I've spent 7 or 8 years in most of my stops. I'm not looking to be moving around and jumping around. It's something that, honestly, and I said this to the lady who brought me in, the search committee. I'd always heard nice things about Blackstone Millville, but that search committee just blew me away. Just wonderful people. Talking with friends who've grown up in the area, I know that people stay here, they come back and live here. It's a tight-knit community who take a lot of pride in their schools, and I think that's something that I'm looking for.
That's great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a